The following broadcast is brought to you by the iGolf Sports Network.
Golf Talk Live is sponsored by the iGolf Sports Network and Golf Tips Magazine. Here's Andrew to tell you more about our sponsors.
iGolf Sports is a live stream broadcast and media production company providing quality programming designed to attract the golfing enthusiast. And Golf Tips, the game's most in-depth instruction magazine, including reviews on the latest equipment, tips from top teaching professionals, all designed to help you improve from tee to green. Welcome to Golf Talk Live with your host, Ted Odorico. Join Ted each week as he speaks with some of the best in golf. This week's special guest will join us a bit later. But first up is another great discussion on Coach's Corner. So let's introduce tonight's Coach's Corner panel.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to Golf Talk Live. Again, I'm your host, Ted Odorico. We've got a great, as I said, we've been having a great show tonight, and I'm really excited about having tonight's featured guest for a couple of reasons. Always interested to meet new people, and this is going to be our first time meeting officially. But also, he's a fellow Canuck, a Canadian, as it were. So we'll have a few Canadian things that we'll insert into the conversation, I'm sure, along the way. But let me tell you a little bit about him, and then we'll get into tonight's discussion. His name is Fraser Marriott. He is the head of golf for Lightspeed Commerce or Golf. He oversees all aspects of golf management software and payment processing, tailored for courses, country clubs, resorts, and communities. Marriott started in the company's retail division before shifting to Lightspeed Golf as director of sales and subsequently director of customer management, playing an integral role significantly in scaling the business, including partnerships with top multi-course operators coast to coast. So on that note, let me welcome my very good special guest, featured guest tonight, Fraser Marriott. Fraser, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Ted. Excited to be here.
All right, appreciate it. So, again, as I mentioned, a fellow Canuck. So you are living in Quebec, right? In Montreal specifically, right?
So I'm actually just outside Montreal. I'm a little closer. I'm kind of between Ottawa and Montreal, at a little town called Chelsea. But okay. I am in Montreal quite frequently. That's where our headquarters is.
Okay, very good. Lots of good food. I've been to Montreal many times over the years. I haven't been there for a while, but lots of good food there. So we'll maybe sneak a little bit of the cuisine in there as we head in. But in the conversation. But yeah. But so I think first off, I think what we'll do. Obviously, we'll learn a little bit more. I know there's more things that we can talk about here about you personally, but I want you to give us a sort of an overview of who Lightspeed is. So there's really a couple of components to it. So give us a little bit of the backstory, if you will, to Lightspeed.
Yeah, so Lightspeed was founded in 2005 by Dax Da Silva, our current CEO still to this day. So it was a Mac-based point-of-sale software that was essentially built for small to medium-sized businesses. So we basically wanted to offer enterprise-level technology for kind of the small to medium-sized business. So, and it really took off. It was really focused on, more Canadian customers to begin with. But as it grew, we moved into North America and more global. And then, originally focused on the retail side. And then as the company grew, in 2014, we made the pivot and actually, acquired a hospitality company and moved into the hospitality space. Continued to ramp up. There were a few other acquisitions on the retail side and on the restaurant side, such as Gastrofix, Vend, Shopkeep, things like that. And with us actually going IPO in 2019. And that was actually the same year that they acquired Chronogolf, which was founded in Montreal, Quebec by JD Saint Martin, our president, Guillaume Jacquet, our old CTO, and Fred Jacquet, who is, the main brains behind the operation. And he was actually a pro originally and kind of saw the hole in the market and grew it from there, which was super exciting. And so I think what was neat about it and neat about the kind of acquisition of golf is Chronogolf at the time was one of Lightspeed's best resellers. So they'd resell Lightspeed, the point of sale software for them. And, I think there was such alignment between the leadership, between the people, between the kind of overarching idea of supporting local businesses, that it was a perfect fit. So kind of coming over in that era, and that's around the same time I joined the company actually. And then since then, we've acquired an e-commerce company a B2B wholesale management software called New Order. And now the whole focus is really in North America is to focus on the retail side in golf and supporting local businesses, empowering our communities, and bringing people together through commerce. And then we really focus hospitality in Europe. And then, but we do actually empower over 100 countries with our software right now.
That's fantastic. So, what's interesting is there's so many components. When most people think about golf, of course, they're thinking about the tours or they're thinking about golf instruction and things like that. But there's really so many other business components, and you obviously are a leader in that at Lightspeed. And it's interesting that it's not just about the game itself, but it's all of the support mechanisms that go into working with different clients and not just the general public. So give us again, I want to just drill down a little bit more. Give us specifics of what exactly does Lightspeed Golf do, and does it typically serve just the public, private, or resort courses, or all of the above?
Yeah, I mean, great question. So what we're a one-stop solution. So we provide, like an all-encompassing offering for golf courses. So everything from, booking tee times online all the way through to your restaurant, snack bar, on course. We go very deep on the restaurant side, retail side, golf side. So we empower the entire operation, not only in the back end, but in the front end as well for the customer facing for the golfer. And then as well, we do also have payment processing. So we are our own payment processor, which is very cool.
Yeah.
And then who do we service? So we actually have our ideal customer profile is essentially every golf course you can imagine right now, because we actually just created a partnership with Whoosh. So now we're able to enter the private side. But previously our main focus has been on the public, semi-private resort and multi-course operator. And the example of multi-course operator would be Kemper Landscapes,
right.
Advanced Golf, things like that. So just for the listeners who don't know what multi-course operator is, it's basically a conglomerate of golf courses, either through management or through ownership.
Yeah. And there's so many now, and the golf courses are, if people really understood just how many golf courses there are around the world, it would just blow their mind. I guess what I want to really dive into a little bit is from the golf course operators, because these are the guys and gals that really, have a pretty stressful job, because they've got to make sure everything's running smoothly and everything's, working on point, and they need to be able to get things working and functioning correctly. So how are you guys able to make their life a little bit easier? Because I'm sure they appreciate that.
Yeah, I think what's very important is that we're an all-in-one, we're a one-stop shop. And I think, what I tell everyone, what is our biggest differentiator? Our biggest differentiator is our people, and kind of our mission in supporting our customers. We as a team work with unilateral net retention metric. So our focus is really on retaining and helping grow and optimize customers. So I really think it's our support that sets people apart. I think a lot of softwares can be interchangeable, but where a lot of softwares fall short is really on the customer service side. And that's where I really think we excel. I think in tandem with that, we do use a best of breed approach, where essentially if our software doesn't do it, we find the right partner who can help fill that hole, which I think is incredibly important. Because we're listening to the customer, we're listening to their needs, and we're finding the right providers to help provide the best software.
And I would imagine that as an operator, if you're using the software, reporting is a big thing as well. We want to be able to get those access to those numbers quickly, reports, things like that, see how the operation overall is doing, not just in tee times, but obviously, as you mentioned, restaurants and things like that. They want to be able to say, okay, these are the numbers, these are the high points, these are the low points, given the season, they know when their strengths. They need to have that information. So how easy is it for them to get access to that information? And is there a lot of challenges in getting that initially set up?
No, not at all. It comes right out of the box. So what we do have is, I mean, it was a great point. You spoke about, reordering of food, work in the hospitality sector. So we have ingredient management directly built into the restaurant side of things. On the retail side as well, we have reorder points. It's really easy to track inventory. You can show your dusty inventory, what's working well, what's not. You can plan what needs to go on sale, what isn't going to go on sale. It's very simplistic. So right out of the box, you have well over 100 reports, both on the golf side, retail, and restaurant, that are really simple to use. They're all, basically click and play. We actually are releasing a whole new reporting suite called Business Intelligence that will be coming out in early September, which will kind of redefine our whole reporting tool right now. In addition to that, we do have an advanced reporting partner called Metolius, run by Ross Liggett. You may know him, Ted. He's a big name within the industry, and so he's one of our great partners who works with us as well, especially on our marketing side, digital marketing side. So
Right.
I think all in all, the whole point of this is we empower you guys and these operators to essentially be able to make faster, quicker, more nimble decisions, which I think is incredibly important in this day and age. You need to have access to those numbers, to those reports instantaneously.
Do some of the reports include in that, or can be easily integrated with other systems to provide like a profit and loss statement so that they can see, okay, this is our revenues coming in, here's our expenses going out, here's an overall P&L that they can. The reason why I asked that is because one of the things that a lot of companies are doing now is being able to, before you had to run a lot of stuff, the accountant had to, go through all this. And now there's so many programs out there where they can integrate together, so you can actually import it or export it right into your accounting software. So it's very
Absolutely.
easy. Is that something that's available to your clients as well?
Yes, it is. Yeah, we integrate with, I would say,
Right.
99.9% of accounting softwares. We have a completely open API, which is very rare in this industry.
Right.
And we encourage our customers to come forth. If there's any preferred accounting software, we work with our amazing kind of head of partnerships and
Sure.
strategy, Matt Welliver, and he'll make all that magic
Right.
happen for you. But yeah, we integrate with basically any accounting software that you need. And
Yeah.
like you said, it really makes life easy. And
Oh
we all
yeah.
know the brains of the golf course really is the accountant.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
He or she tells you whether or not you're going to have a business next week,
yeah.
and what you can and cannot spend. And a lot of people listening might look at that and say, well, okay, what does that really matter? But the truth of the fact is, from an operator with so much, number one, competition out there, and obviously with other environmental impacts such as a slow economy, that type of thing, you need to have instant access to information. Years ago, people would just look at the tee sheet and say, okay, well, we've got 70 people coming in today instead of 100, so we know that our revenue is going to be a little bit down. But now there's so many other components. Golf courses are not just looking at tee times; they've got other options available. Maybe it's restaurants, food and that sort of thing, or there may be other activities that they're spas or what, like, especially for the resort. So there's a lot of other revenue streams that can come in so that they can factor in. And when they see one's not working as effectively, what can we do to ramp this up, or how can we, work them together, sort of thing. So I think it's very, very important from an operator standpoint. I'm going to give you an opportunity to brag a little bit about Lightspeed, and that I know that St. Andrews in Scotland is somebody that Lightspeed works with. What are some of the other famous courses that you guys are working with on a big scale like that?
Yeah, so I think it's twofold. I think we work with some amazing MCOs. We work with Kemper Landscape Advanced Golf, Founders, Blue Star Golf. We have a tremendous kind of Rolodex of MCOs that we work with. I think if you're looking at bragging as kind of individual properties.
Yeah.
Right now, we also operate in Kapalua, Lac La Belle out in Wisconsin, French Lick, which is
Oh,
top
really? Okay.
100 course, which is really, really cool. So we're kind of scattered all over the map. I think in Canada we work with Tobiano, which is an incredible golf course out west, and a few others, and we have some great names coming in up, and some great resorts that have recently signed with us. I'm actually heading over to Scotland to go visit with St. Andrews and kind of talk about what our future holds and how we're looking to expand in that part of the world too.
Yeah, I was actually, it's funny you mentioned that. I was just in French Lick actually a weekend ago. Went
Okay.
there for a short trip, and yeah, it was great golf courses there. Just a interesting property, and up in of course Indiana, in the
Home
town of
of Larry
French Lick.
Bird, right? I
Every,
think.
I gotta throw this out there. Since you brought this up, what I was really, and I gotta say that now maybe we missed it, but a lot of the restaurants, of course, had his jersey inside.
Yeah.
But I was surprised. I was like, no statue, no signage anywhere that I could find. So for those of you from French Lick, if you're licking, you guys need to get a sign or something up there, or a little statue, in the town square, and get that up at Larry Bird. He needs to get his props. So just
Yeah.
throwing that out there.
Larry Legend.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Get him up there. But so again, give us sort of an example since switching to Lightspeed Golf system in terms of the management software and that. Give us an example of the performance lift, if you will, of a golf course. So what is it doing? How is it helping sort of expand their business? What can they expect using your system?
So typically, when using the systems, I think if you start in payment processing, you save around 15% per year on payment processing rates. I think that's something really important to note. I think that there needs to be a further audit in this industry on what companies are charging for payment processing. I definitely
agree.
think that's a tough one often, and it's not very transparent. We're extremely transparent using a flat rate model. We save around 15%. I think if you're looking at time savings for your staff, which is really important, is you're looking at saving around 20 hours per week just for the simplicity of the software processing. We spoke earlier about reports. I think that's another key component, because you're able to extrapolate that information, digest it quickly, and make those quick decisions. So I'd say on average, it's about 20 hours a week that you're saving for your staff, and then around 15% on payment processing, which is huge for the bottom line, especially, with semi-private publics, those mom and pop courses that, every dollar matters. And those are what our companies, what point of sale companies, what tee sheet companies should be looking to support. They are the foundation of what golf is built on, are these mom and pop shops. So we need to ensure that we're supporting them and listening to their needs. And I think Lightspeed does a good job of that by ensuring that we are priced below the competition, and as well as we're saving the money on payment processing.
And I would imagine that all of your components to your system can be easily branded to whatever course or whatever brand they want. So if, again, in St. Andrews, if they want to brand their POS, they can do that to whatever component they have. I'm assuming that's integrated into your system, correct?
So that would be more on the customer facing side. So,
Right.
About printing out receipts, things like that.
Right. That's what I mean.
We are able to do that, through some of our partners, not innately in the system, but through partners, we're able to do that.
Okay. That's great. Well, I mean, that's good to know too, because people want to have, brand recognition with their properties. People come and visit, and even if it's something as simple as a receipt, if it's properly branded, that sends off some bells and whistles for people, and they say, oh, okay, yeah, I was at St. Andrews, I remember this receipt, and it's a good time. So I want to ask you something, and normally I would ask this question right from the get-go, but I thought I'd save this for a little bit. So why golf? What is it about golf that you enjoy? When did you first get integrated to golf? In other words, when did you first sort of get introduced to the game? And do you get a chance to play that much now because you're sort of entrenched into your job? But just give us a little history of your golfing experience from where you began and to the point you are now.
Yeah, I mean, I originally was introduced to golf when I was around 15 years old by my godfather. That first summer I played a par 3 course, and I chipped in for birdie my first round. So I was completely hooked. It was probably like 2 of the worst shots ever, but it went in the hole.
Right.
And so I was completely hooked from that point. And so that summer I actually got a job at a local golf course, Royal Ottawa Golf Club, under head pro Paul Carruthers, who's still a great friend of mine. And so I actually worked there from about 15 to, I'd say, about 21, 22, every summer. And my goal actually was to become a CPGA golf professional. So I actually did the PGM program, close to actually, Ted, where you grew up. down in Niagara-on-the-Lake.
Okay, know that well.
So I actually did the 3-year program there, and graduated and anticipated really going into that field. At that time, I didn't feel like I was ready to kind of jump into a full-time career. So I actually went back to school and kind of took a slight deviation working in a small startup, and then moved to Lightspeed, and didn't know if I'd get back to golf, but I was still playing a lot. I have a huge passion for the game, for the history of it, for, kind of the day-to-day and the tradition. And then, when they acquired Chrono Golf, my ears perked up, my eyes were wide. I was like, oh man, how do I join? And luckily, JD, our president, actually was like, hey, would you like to join the team? And kind of the rest has been history. I think, am I playing a lot of golf? I think my wife will say that I'm playing way too much golf, but I think, me personally, I don't think I'm playing enough. But I do get to go out to some amazing courses, due to a lot of our partners and customers. Great Life, John and Jason Harshberger and Bryce have taken me out to some great spots. Been able to play Bay Hill, Pebble Beach, and so I feel very fortunate, because I don't think I would ever been able to play a lot of these courses in my life without that. So I would say I probably play once a week, if I'm lucky, and then try and get some practicing in whenever I can. I live about 15 minutes from the golf course I'm a member at, so it's fingers crossed that that'll only increase.
Right. Well, and that's one of the things. And the reason I ask that is because people don't really, I think, fully appreciate. When a lot of people look at golf, of course, their main introduction to golf, if they haven't been introduced earlier on as you were, is what they see on television. So they see it at the pro level and they think, oh, there's no way I can play like that, and they don't understand that really it's a game for everybody. Doesn't matter what level you are, how good or bad you are. I've seen people that couldn't break 100 if their life depended on them, but they have an incredible amount of fun. There's there's a camaraderie, and originally it was more of a buddies type thing. It was a predominantly male dominated sport, but now, because of many of the pioneers in the LPGA, it's now become a big dominant force in women's golf as well. And now you're seeing even more couples play and things like that. Maybe you'll convince your wife one day to come out and join you on the links. We'll see. I'm not gonna push anything. I don't want to create any bad blood. So if she's listening, I don't want to force the issue. But my sister was like that for years. I don't get it. I don't understand. And I finally said, look, go out and try it. And the next thing you know, she's walking through with a full set of clubs and several outfits and shoes and the whole bit. And I said, what's all this? She said, well, it's actually what you said it was. It was a good game. So
yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
So it's never too late. But I want people to get out there and play, and it's great, for you doing what you do, because you see a lot of other aspects of the game. You see it from a business side, not just from me as an instructor or as a player. You get to see sort of behind the scenes of what really goes on in a golf operation and see how it's put together. And it's a lot more than just hitting a white ball around the golf course. There's a lot of components that go in. Then there's a lot of support people that work to make the courses successful. And systems like Lightspeed that are able to now, with technology, help these golf operators, as we touched on earlier, to be able to be even more successful at a quicker pace. And it gives them instant information, whereas before they might have had to. It could be several months before they really had all the numbers put together. Now they can just, with the click of a button or two, they've got all that information coming in real time. So that's what's the number one thing that you enjoy most about your job, and what would you say is the most challenging part of your job?
The part that I enjoy the most is really the people I've met along the way. I think I've mentioned a few, like, Landscapes, Kemper, Great Life, Founders. A lot of these MCOs, they've really helped sculpt, me, who I am today. I would say I've learned a lot from some of the great leaders, like, John Brown, Scott Wellman, Tom Everett, Jeff Osborne. There are a lot of people that have been really impactful in my life and in my career. And I've made a lot of great friends. Pat Kelly and I, Fred Advanced Golf, he and I have been texting about barbecues the other day because of buying a new barbecue. Like, it's really the people, I think, from a customer standpoint, but I think also from an employee standpoint. I've worked with a lot of people at Lightspeed Golf now. I think we have an incredible retention plan for employees. And I've worked with a lot of people for 5, 6 years now, 7 years, which I think is a rarity in this day and age. As you
Yeah.
know, a lot of millennials
Oh,
and
yeah.
Gen Zs bounce
Yeah.
around jobs every 6 months, 12 months.
If you're lucky.
Yeah, if you're lucky. And so it's definitely been a huge benefit to my my personal life and my professional life, is just the people that I've met, and we've been able to build something pretty neat from that standpoint. What's my biggest challenge? You know, I think just staying ahead of kind of what the most recent trends are. Like, golf is ever changing. You see, recreational golf is becoming is becoming such a prominent part of this game, and just ensuring that we're supporting everyone the best way we can, and we're developing the right parts of the business to help support those customers. And I think that the most challenging part is we have to ensure that we're listening to every single customer and their needs. We can't get stuck with tunnel vision here, focusing on one subset of what is an incredible industry. So I think the most challenging part is ensuring that we're still hearing the voice of the customer and staying ahead of what is required for Lightspeed to remain, one of the top players in this industry.
Yeah, you hit a great topic, because from a teach professional side, this was one of my concerns for a long time. Is we saw sort of a stagnation, and in where golf instructors were sort of putting everybody in one box. We're going to teach the game this way. This is how it's going to be taught, and they didn't really factor in that there were so many, different types of swings, different way people can approach the game, and even different reasons for why people want to play the game. You have your own reason. I have a different reason, and so has another reason, and they're not always the same. There might be certain similarities, but they're all different. I think, believe it or not, and as tragic as it was, I think COVID was a real eye opener for the industry. The industry obviously benefited. There's no doubt about it, because of the type of industry that you are. It's an outdoor game, so people were able to get out and take advantage, and it brought a lot of new people to the game that had never been exposed to it before. It brought back some people that had kind of hung up the clubs for a while out of frustration or whatever the reason, maybe age, and they said, you know what, I'm tired of watching movies on Netflix. I got to get out of the house. I can't stand it. And wife's driving me crazy, husband's driving me, whatever. And so they came out, and then there was a whole new generation. And I interviewed a CEO. I'm not going to give his name at this point, but one of the top CEOs in the business, and he said, this is a chance for a real reset for the golf business, for them to take a look at it and say, okay, let's not go down the same rabbit hole we have for 20, 30 years. Here's a chance to look at the industry from a different, and you had the onset of companies like Top Golf and others that have come up since then, that have come up and introduced people to a game. And yeah, it may not be quote unquote traditional golf the way, maybe you or I or others may look at it. But at the same time, it's introducing people to a game like never before, and it's giving them an opportunity. And it's removing a little bit of the stuffiness. I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, I've been around golf. I mean, I'm older than you are, so I've been around golf for a long time, since I was 7 years old. And there's always been a little bit of a stuffiness. And I think that it's breaking a lot of that glass ceiling, if you will, and it's opening not just to a younger generation, but to a different generation too, that, maybe doesn't want to. I mean, for a while there, they were letting people come out in the golf courses, some of them with flip-flops. I mean, heck with the golf shoes. They just wanted to get the numbers out.
Yeah.
And golf courses are changing too. I think you're seeing more and more, and I'm sure you're seeing it through your businesses, that your integration with different courses. They're bringing back, short courses and things like that, because sometimes people don't have time to play, 18 holes or what have you. So, they're integrating a small 9, and it's almost like what they have at Augusta National with a sort of that chip and putt, where it's a very short course. It's meant to be fun. It's meant to get out there and and then the next, people say, oh, I'm going to try, Pinehurst number 2, or I'm going to try this one over here, or I'm going to try that over there. So it's a way of integrating to the game. Are you seeing that through your lens as well, or am I just out in left field?
No, I definitely think you nailed it. I really think it's removed the barrier to entry. I think that it felt like golf was, you couldn't come in, you couldn't join. It was a tight knit community, which it still is,
Sure.
in many circles. But I think removing that barrier to entry, I think Top Golf, and TrackMan, all these different simulator companies that have come in and really redefined point entry for golfers has been incredible. And you can see the impact on occupancy rates. You can see that, year over year, we're seeing that growth. I think we need to ensure that we don't lose some of that, kind of history and some of that, what makes golf
Tradition.
special, some of that tradition.
Mhm.
But I definitely think the barrier to entry, it's really allowed, more people to come and enjoy this beautiful game. And I think it's incredibly important. And I think it's helped virtually every golf course.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think too, um, from an industry standard, I think one of the things that I'm excited about seeing, being able to play around and seeing different, age demographics and that is they're just having fun. I mean, you see now with these companies coming out, whether it's, not just the big guys, but even some of the new companies that are coming in. I mean, now you've seen the onset of the Bluetooth speaker. The guys are, using the magnet and pumping it on their thing, and they're listening to some tunes out there, and they're, most of them are being respectful. Some of them are not, but most of them are being pretty respectful. But it's opened a whole different dynamic of the game, and it's made it fun. And this
Yeah.
was, something I'd heard the industry for a long, long time. So, you got to have fun when you're out there. Well, when you're out there and your game sucks and you're just not playing very well. I mean, I see the stats that National Golf Foundation puts out every single year. And basically it's a repeat. They might as well just print it and just put it out every season with the same thing and say same as before. Is you're not seeing handicaps coming down. And that's really a twofold. Is you have to make it fun for people. You have to make it exciting for people to want to go out there. So this is what a lot of people have been juggling over the last several years. And so when you think of that, what do you see as some of the future trends, not just for Lightspeed? Like, where do you see your business moving in the future? And where would you like to see golf move as it continues on its journey of development and growth?
Yeah, I think it's finding that happy medium. I mean,
Mm.
if you look at our Lightspeed State of the Industry report, there's a huge percentage of millennials and Gen Z that really want to have that customizable, personalized experience,
Mhm.
and are kind of yearning for that digital experience, which is the top tracers, things like that. So
Yeah.
I definitely think there's a way to incorporate the two. I think there's some, courses that have done it really well, having those top tracer ranges, and having TrackMan ranges. If you go to Cabot or a lot of these incredible kind of destinations, they're starting to encompass more of that fun, like you said, those games, those short courses. So I think you kind of nailed it. I think as long as golf is continuing to go in kind of that fun, collaborative community direction, I
Mm.
think everyone in the industry will benefit from that.
Yeah.
So for me, I think we're headed in the right direction. I think we just have to be very conscious to not lose, the tradition of the game, and ensuring that there is a certain level of respect to what is an amazing game. So the speakers and everything's is a great addition to what we're doing, and then I think it's just continuing to grow off of that and make sure we're doing it the right way and showing
Mm.
healthy growth. Golf is growing like this, but if the industry takes their eyes off of the end goal of that healthy, sustained growth, we can easily have a huge peak and a huge valley, and we want to see that healthy, sustained growth, which I think is collaborating more with each other. And if you're looking at it from a Lightspeed perspective, I want to see all of the industry better collaborate with one another to provide the right services, to provide the perfect solution, to help save the courses money and allow them to kind of flourish and invest, put money back in their pockets so they can invest in these new technologies to help attract more golfers to them.
Yeah, one thing I've said I mean, that's some great points, Fraser. What I want to see, I think the industry as a whole do is, I think, the more oars in the water, rowing in the same direction,
I
getting the
agree.
industry moving in the same direction, but it has to be open-minded. It can't be say, well, let's just do this and everybody goes in the right, and may not necessarily be the best. So you have to be careful of that too. And it's good to have some new folks coming in. I think one of the biggest criticisms I had for golf, and I'm going to move from the instructional side a little bit, is there was a mentality of, well, I'll roll up the drive, pull in the driveway of the golf course, open the doors, and people will come. Well, you can't do that anymore and survive. You've got to be out. There has to be outreaches to your community. You have to find things of drawing people in. And it's not just cheap tee times. And I mean, they've tried that route 1,000 times and it works to a point, but then you run a risk of pricing yourself out of the market. So you have to find other ways. Years ago, you had big facilities where people would have their wedding or their reception or something at a golf course. And that was great. But now what they're doing is, as I mentioned, with the short courses and things like that, they're finding other ways of drawing people in, having other activities, non-golf related, but just getting people there so that you can bring your family there now. And, maybe they've got horseback riding, maybe they've got other things that they're doing. So they're making it so that it's not just all about golf. I mean, golf is still a central focus, but a lot of these resorts, as I'm sure you see, you go all over, and I mean, they're on a lake and there's boating and there's, this, that, kayaking and whatever, hiking, horseback, right? Like as I said, all different types of things. So I think you have to have a diversity. But also, too, I think one of the big issues that the younger generation is driving is they value their time much more than we. I mean, we didn't care. We went out in the golf course, 4.5 hours when you could still play for that short. Now it's 5 hours, but or more. But they don't want to do that anymore. They don't want to do that. They want to go out and say, I don't have 5 hours of my day that I want to do that because I have so many other, cool things I want to do. So the industry has had to make adjustments there. How can we get them to the golf course? How can we get them engaged? So they're offering things instead of just the traditional 9 or 18 holes, they might just do 6 holes. Say, hey, I want to play 6 holes or some other, abbreviated form of it. And they've had to adapt to that. Is that something that you're noticing a lot too? And as you look through some of your clients, they're having to make those adjustments?
Yeah, I mean, you've looked at a lot of new builds, like they're making short courses that are 12 holes, 6 holes,
Yeah.
all these numbers you'd kind of never seen before, and there's huge popularity for it. If you look at a lot of the new builds in North America, that's a lot of them either are an 18 and a short course, or they're just building a 12-hole course, they're just building a 9-hole course. It's a really interesting point, and I think it will be fun to watch how that continues to progress. But I think 12 holes is becoming incredibly popular. If you look at local course here that I play at, they offer a 6-hole, 9-hole, and 12-hole rate, which I would never have thought that was a thing even 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So it's definitely interesting. Once again, it's removing that barrier to entry. So I think getting more people to play the game is incredibly important.
Well, and you're seeing, a lot of innovators a lot of young innovators coming into the game, whether it's through apps or through other programs, or just ideas saying, hey, you know what, I'd like to play this game, but I just don't have that time. I just don't have, I just don't want to right now. Maybe down the road I might, but right now I want to be introduced to the game, but I don't have the time that I can dedicate. And even instruction has had to adapt as well. I mean, it used to be an hour-long lesson or sometimes even more. Even 30-minute lessons now, people don't want that anymore. They want to get taught online. And there's, people are going online to get their information more so than they are going to the golf course. So again, this is why the academies have to make changes. They're bringing in simulators and things like that, and they're building the simulators in such a way that they're, they may offer refreshments or game night or something like that. They're having to be very creative, and it's really being driven by a lot of the younger generation coming in saying, you said it's going to be fun, so let's make it fun.
Yeah.
And that's why Topgolf was, went the way it did, is because people thought, hey, this is pretty cool. It wasn't about the golf. It was really about the entertainment experience. And it just happened to have a golf was the vessel that they used to, and, it built up to, a $1 billion industry. So, and, up in Manhattan, New York, I mean, I know companies that have indoor simulators right downtown Manhattan, and you can go in there and it's almost like going to the gym. You want to go in for an hour and, play Pebble Beach, or you want to play whatever, you go in and do that and don't even have to touch grass. So, I mean, there's so many components to this. And I don't know if you go down to the PGA show in January down in Orlando, but over the last few years, if you look at, the way the trends are, more and more simulators are, you're seeing, 5 years ago, there might've been a couple. Now there's probably 20 simulators at the PGA show every year, and probably going to be more again this year, because everybody recognizes that they have to diversify their businesses. So I want to ask you just a couple of more questions as we get ready to wrap up. I mentioned we were going to talk a little bit about you, and that's some of the cuisine. So obviously, as I mentioned at the top of the show, Montreal is famous for some of its cuisine. Great restaurants in downtown Montreal and surrounding areas. Nat, do you have a favorite? What's popular in Montreal for those who've never been?
Oh, well, I mean, well, you have to say Schwartz's because that's smoked meat, and that's what Montreal is known for. You know, if you don't bring that one up, I don't know if you've ever been to Montreal, but it is a great spot. You need to get a Schwartz's smoked meat sandwich. I'm a big fan of Satay Brothers in St. Henry in the southwest of the city. It's kind of Vietnamese, Southeast Asian food. It's absolutely amazing. Really, back to that idea of recreational golf. That place is all about having fun, getting in there. It's a quick, short experience, and the
Yep.
food is simply incredible. But really throughout the city, there's some incredible spots. There's new restaurants, Le Violon, which is done by Danny Smiles, a Top Chef Canada finalist who's great. It's right by our office. So if you come down, Ted, I'll have to take you out there. I mean, there's no
Yeah.
there's no shortness of fun, especially in the summertime. I don't think there's a better city in Canada than Montreal.
Yeah, Montreal has some great diversity there in not only the culture but just I mean, food second to none. I mean, I hate to say this, but I've lived around Toronto for many years, and there's some good restaurants. Don't get me wrong, but it doesn't come close to the cuisine in Montreal. So if you're planning on a trip, a lot of great golf courses in Montreal and Quebec in general. But if you want to visit, there's a lot of great restaurants in Montreal to go and eat. So you'll never go hungry. Put it that way.
Yeah.
Lastly, we're going to touch on, this is unrelated to golf, unrelated to food, but we're a couple of Hockey Night in Canada boys.
Okay.
I don't watch it as much. I got to be honest. I was sad to hear that you're an Ottawa Senators fan. I'm a Leaf fan. Was formerly a Montreal Canadian. They got to be concerned in Quebec right now that you bailed on the Montreal Canadiens and you're voting for Ottawa. So what's the deal here?
Well, I mean, I was close. I live closer to Ottawa than I do to Montreal, and I mean, I can tell you, it was when I started working at the office, I was not a big hit. That I was an Ottawa Senators fan. I think that was my fun fact when I started at Lightspeed and got some booze. Yeah. So I grew up. My dad was an Ottawa Senators fan. We had a really good run in the early to mid 2000s, and then it has been absolute despair. We did make the playoffs this year for the first time in quite a few years, which is extremely exciting. We battled your Leafs. We lost, but I think we put up a pretty good fight. Yeah, no, I'm unwilling to change because, and I'll say it on the air, the Montreal Canadiens fans are insufferable. Whether they're and if they're doing well, you never hear the end of it. So I'm happy with my choice.
Yeah, just make sure you hide when you're talking hockey out in public, and don't put down the Montreal Canadian fans, because they'll hunt you down like a pack of wolves. Let me tell you.
Oh yeah, I'm sure I'll get some grief on that.
Oh, I'm sure you will, especially from your office. But all kidding aside, as I was telling you on our call last week, that following the Leafs, if anybody out there knows what I'm talking about, a Toronto Maple Leaf fan, we've had many years where there was nothing happening in our end. So I know exactly what it's like to have some bad seasons. But you know what? There's again, much like golf, there's a camaraderie in hockey, and obviously as Canadians, that's our sport. Unlike certainly we enjoy baseball and football and that as well. But Canada hockey is our big thing, and golf, I think, comes in a close second. But it's just one of those things. It's interesting to learn about a little bit more about Lightspeed, and it's interesting to have you, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing that. Any final thoughts, and any parting words that you want to share with our audience and anybody that wants to maybe learn more information about Lightspeed? Is there a website that they can go and check it out?
Yeah, you can go on to lightspeed.com and check it out and learn more. I'm happy for you to reach out to me directly on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to have a conversation. Always love to know what's going on in the industry. I think, Ted, you brought up some incredible points and thoughts today on where the industry's headed. I'm super excited and bullish on where golf can go. And I encourage any feedback, things like that, on how you feel Lightspeed can grow, be better support you. So I'm always looking to hear from our customers and learn more. And yeah, Ted, thanks for all you're doing for the industry. I think it's important to have these conversations and have those opinions and figure out how we can all work together to grow this game.
Yeah, I always enjoy one of the things this is my 13th season doing this show, and I always enjoy as you do meeting new people, and this is a little bit different way of meeting them, obviously, than face to face, but this is part of the technological age. But I appreciate what you bring to the industry as well. Obviously, a fresh approach and obviously a love of the game. And humility. I think it's important in any business to have some humility as well, and say, I don't know everything, and I'm always willing to learn and grow with it. And I think that's important for our industry. And I think, as I alluded to earlier, that was something that the industry, it took a pandemic to get us to get back on a more steady course. But I think it's going to serve the industry well in the long run. And I think a lot of people are excited about that. But I want to thank you for joining and being my very special guest this evening. Again, go to lightspeed.com if you want to get more information on their company. And I'm sure a lot of the contact information is there. You can reach out, and I'm sure you'll be happy, as you said, through social media and that, to have some conversations and bring them up to speed. And obviously, if you're a golf course operator and you're not currently working with Lightspeed, you can reach out to them as well and learn more about their business. I'm sure they'll be happy to step up and answer any questions that you might have. But on that note, Fraser, again, thank you very much. Hang tight for a second. I'm just going to wrap up. I want to also thank my guests earlier this evening, my very special guest on the Coach's Corner panel, John Decker. Thank you, as always, for bringing your best to the show. Also, my special travel guest, my good friend, Robert Kaufman, co-host and travel expert, along with our special travel guest of the evening, Jose Marthelon from the Solmar Golf Links in Cabo San Lucas. Thank you, Jose, for joining us and bringing us some insight into your property down there, and a great place to go and visit and just unwind and have maybe a few margaritas after your round, and maybe a little spa. Get spoiled with some spa treatment. But and certainly last but not least, again, a special thanks to Fraser Marriott, head of golf for Lightspeed. So on that note, I will see you next week right here on Golf Talk Live. God bless everybody and have a great week.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this week's broadcast of Golf Talk Live. We'd like to thank this week's Coach's Corner panel, and a special thank you to tonight's guest. Remember to join Ted every Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. Central on Golf Talk Live. And be sure to follow Ted on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you're interested in being a guest on Golf Talk Live, send Ted an email at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. This has been a production of the iGolf Sports Network.